Beautiful. All right. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Thank you very much for taking your time to come and join us today, where we're going to be speaking about acquiring properties in the UK on a rental basis. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys a bit of a background of where this even came from, why we're looking to do this anyway. So for anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name is Muzzie Nduna. I've been investing in property in the UK for the past 5 years. So we've got a portfolio of properties in the West Midlands. So I am a landlord, so I understand how you actually how the processes go in terms of being able to acquire property. So quite a few people who have recently come into the UK, more specifically the Zimbabweans who've recently come on the care visa, are struggling to find houses somewhere to live. So the usual process is you come in, you get taken care of by your local your employer for a temporary basis, and then you have to go find somewhere for yourself. It's that process of shifting from being taken care of by the employer to you finding your own property, or finding a bigger property to accommodate the people or the rest of your family that's going to be coming soon. That seems to be a struggle for a lot of people, and I've been getting random phone calls from different people asking for assistance in terms of that. So we decided to do this Zoom call where we're going to share some information on what to look out for, how to increase your chances on being able to find a property in the UK. And also, this is going to be a PowerPoint presentation, by the way, guys. So just go through the presentation probably for about 15, 20 minutes-ish. Right. And at the end of it, we'll allow you guys to ask your questions, and it'll just be a Q&A. Right. To keep this a little bit more uniform and organized, I'm just going to ask you guys to use the chat, please. If you can use the chat to ask your questions, whatever questions you come up with, please use the chat and I will go through your questions. And if I need any clarity, I will ask you to unmute and we can get a bit more information from you. Hope that's okay. And for anyone who's watching this after and you're watching it on YouTube, unfortunately, you can't really ask your questions directly, but you can ask your questions still in the comments, and I will try by all means to respond to everything that anyone says in the comments. I hope that's okay with everyone. So without wasting too much time, I am going to get started on this presentation. So there's more people that have joined. Linjani Lonke, Magali Mose, hope everyone is doing well. I am going to start the presentation shortly. And just to confirm, guys, just to confirm, the chat box is actually working for everyone. Can I just ask everyone to just type in hello in the chat? If you're listening and you can hear what I'm saying, please just type in hello in the chat and let's just see and make sure everything is going good. Right, superb. I can see a lot of hellos. Thank you very much. That confirms you guys can hear me and the chat box works fine. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get started with the presentation. Right. Okay, guys. I am just going to need someone to confirm that you can see what's being shared now, just to make sure that is working rather than me going on and talking to myself. Right. Can someone just confirm you can see what's being shared now? Yeah.
Confirmed.
Superb. Thank you. Screen share is good. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay. So just to reiterate, we're going to be talking about how to find a property to rent in the UK. So this is something that's going to be helpful for those that are just looking for a property, ideally for you to live in. Now, I know I've been teaching about how to find a property that you're going to be using as a business. This is not specifically for that, but if you have a question for that, we can talk about it a bit later on. But this is specifically for people who are looking for houses for them to actually live in wherever you are in the UK. So hopefully this is something that will be helpful to you. Now, I'm just going to go through a few stages on things that I think you guys should be looking out for. This is based on my experience as an investor in the UK, also in having several conversations with other people that are investing, letting agents, estate agents, and all sorts. So if you've got any questions, please do not hold back. Ask anything that you can think of that you think is going to be useful for you. And hopefully we will be able to help. So one of the first things that you want to look out for when you're actually looking for a property, right? It seems silly and obvious, but it's making sure that you determine your budget. Okay. You need to understand how much you can actually afford. Now, this is information that you need to start gathering together before you even start speaking to agents, before you start speaking to any landlords. You need to understand how much you are able to afford, how much you're willing to pay for the property you're looking for. And there's several tools that you can use that you can find online in assessing your budget. But basically, you're looking at what you're paying out right now and how much you're getting paid in. Assess what you can afford, and then you can use that information at the point that you actually start looking for your properties. Also, I didn't mention this at the start, guys. I would recommend you start writing notes on things that you think are valuable to you. Yes, we are recording this. You can watch it back. Just use the watching back as a reference, but write notes on things that you think are important for you, by the way. Okay, so you've determined your budget, you understand what it is that you can afford. The next thing you want to do is decide on your location. Okay, so where exactly do you want the property you're looking for? Where exactly are you looking? So there's two different parts on the location side of things. So one is, which city do you want to be living in, right? That's the location you want to go for. But also on top of that, where in the city do you want to live? Are you looking in the city center? Are you looking slightly outside the city center, or further out, as far from the city center as possible? Decide that before you actually start doing the searches, because that's information you want to have at the point that you start searching, so that you can have a good avatar of the ideal property that you are looking for. Okay, so you've got your budget on how much I'm willing to spend on this property per month. I know exactly where it is that I want to go, right? So have your ideal scenarios first. And if you struggle to find your ideals, then you can start opening the tolerance a bit more. But have your specific, exactly what I'm looking for is this, okay? So you now have your location. You understand exactly where you want to be and which part of the city that's going to be. You're now looking at your property type, right? So now I know exactly where I want to be. What type of property am I looking for? Okay. So most people just look at, well, I'm looking at a 2-bedroom. Yeah, that is good. At least you know how many bedrooms you're looking for. But what type? Is it a 2-bedroom apartment? Is it a 2-bedroom terrace house? Is it 2-bedroom semi-detached? Is it 2-bedroom detached house? Does it have parking? Does it not have parking? Have all those specifics put together. Try to imagine you're speaking to someone who's going to look for something that exactly what you're looking for. Give them as much information as you can. Right? I'm looking for a specific location, specific number of bedrooms, specific type of property. I'm looking for parking because I'm driving, or I don't care much about parking because I don't drive, I use public transport. And that's an important aspect, by the way, guys. If you're looking for a property and you don't need parking, then specify that you don't need parking. Because if you go and find a house that has parking and you're not necessarily using it, you're naturally going to pay more because that house has parking, right? So if you don't need parking, specifically look for houses that don't have parking. All right. So for anyone who might not actually understand what a terrace, a semi-detached, a detached house look like, these are examples, okay? And these are terminologies that you use quite a lot in the UK. For anyone who's never heard of it before, this is what they mean, right? So once you have those 3 criteria that we've just gone through, where you're looking at the budget, how much am I willing to spend? The location, where exactly am I looking? And the type of property, what's the type of property that I'm looking for? What exactly am I looking to live in? So you're thinking about what I need for now, and you're also thinking about what you'll need for the future. I did address earlier on that mostly I'm speaking to people that recently came to the UK on a visa, the care visa, where you might come on your own. A bit later on, the rest of your family is going to be coming. So there's no point in you starting to search now for a 1-bed, knowing that in 3, 4, 5 months' time, the rest of your family is coming and they won't fit. So you might as well consider what you're going to need in the future and try to look for that instead, right? So you've got your 3 criteria that we've gone through. The first place that I would suggest you go is the online portals. Okay, this is the place where you're going to find the majority of properties. Letting agents, landlords, they advertise their properties online, and these are the four big platforms that you're going to find. There's more of them. There's a lot more platforms that you can use, but these are the big ones in the UK. Okay, Rightmove being the biggest one. So these are the platforms that you can use where you can actually search for particular properties using those three criteria that we've already spoken about. They will allow you to filter to exactly what you're looking for: the location, the type of property, and also the budget that you're looking for. And then they will filter and give you a list of properties that meets those criteria. It's a lot easier to do it that way because you're looking for exactly what you need, right? Now, these online property portals that I'm highlighting here, they will more likely show you agents. They will show you letting agents that are advertising on there, less about the landlords. Okay. However, the next one we're going to go through, these two here, are the ones that will most likely show you the landlords. So if you're a person who's thinking, well, I don't necessarily want to be going through a letting agent, I don't necessarily want to speak to letting agents, they're going to be taking me through all sorts of verification, I just want to go directly to a landlord, right? You shorten the size of your options, but you can still find landlords in these websites. Okay. Now on Facebook, not many people know that you can find properties on Facebook. And I'm not just talking about Facebook Marketplace. I'm talking about groups. So you can actually join a group in your local area. So for example, let's say you're in Manchester. If you type in on Facebook in the search bar, Manchester houses to rent group, it will show you different groups. There might be 3 or 4 of them that will pop up, and it has thousands of people in there. And in those groups, people go in looking for properties, but also people go in advertising their properties. And you're more likely going to find the owners of the houses on Facebook saying, I've got a 3-bedroom house. Or you can join that group and just put a post in there saying, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom house in this location next month. Has anyone got anything? And you'll probably find either the people that are advertising will tag themselves, or they'll respond to you, or someone will tag someone they know who has what you're looking for. Okay, so use these as well. That also increases your chances of being able to find your property. Right, before we go to the next slide, I'm just going to remind the people that have joined recently, if you've got any questions as we're going along, feel free just to drop your question in the chat box. And at the end of this presentation, we'll go through your questions and answer them as well. So feel free to add information in here and let us know if you've got any questions. Right. Okay. So the other way of finding more properties is to go directly to a letting agent. Okay. For those that have been in the UK for long enough, you know, usually the way that the letting agents and estate agents are set up, they will have loads of offices of different agents on the same street. Okay, which makes it really good for us. It makes it convenient for us because you can just keep going from one office to the other, asking for the same stuff. Okay, so you can physically go into their offices and speak to them about what you're looking for, if you want to do it the other way around. Okay, so you can either go online, like I've mentioned, and see all the information or all the properties that are being advertised, or you can just go directly to the agents and say, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom house, ideally just outside the city center, and I'm looking to move in on the 1st of September, for example. Okay, and they can look at their own portfolio and say, yes, we can help, or no, we can't. The other advantage of speaking directly to agents is not every property that they have is actually advertised. Okay, some of these online agents or some of these portals that I'm speaking about, once you subscribe to them and you start advertising properties, with some of them, they charge you per advert. Okay, so some agents will look at how many properties they have. If I have 10 2-bedroom houses that are around about the same location, I can advertise one, right? And then just pay for that one subscription. And the more people come in asking about that 2-bed, I know I've got another 9 behind me. Okay, so everyone who comes in and makes an inquiry, you can come, arrange a viewing, and then I'll let you know once I've gotten close to you to say, actually, I've got another 9 properties if you want to see them. Okay, So not every property that the agents have will be on the portal, which is another good reason to why you want to go speak to the agents directly. Okay, so that's the physical going into the office. You can also find a list of all the agents in your location, in your area, by just a simple Google search, right? If you type in, and I'll go back to Manchester. I'm not in Manchester, by the way, guys. I don't know why I keep picking Manchester, but I could go onto Google and type in letting agents Manchester. Okay, you're gonna have a list of websites that will be shown. Scroll down to see the link that shows a map. Okay, it will show a map and show dots of different agents on different parts of Manchester. That's the site that you want to go on. Click on that and it'll show you the list of all of the agents that are there. And on each of them, it's called Google My Ad, or it's like Google My Business, basically. So you can actually see the name of the business, the number, the contact number, and you can actually just ring them directly, right? If you actually have that list, and let's say it's got a list of 25 agents, and you dedicate yourself to making a phone call to every single one of them, telling them what you're looking for, again, that's something that can increase your chances of being able to find a property. Okay, so everything that I'm sharing here, guys, is just to increase the chances of you being able to get a property. What I've been finding lately is people will go to either one website, they'll go to Rightmove and they don't do anything else, go on Rightmove and they do the filtering and find that you've got 6 or 7 properties that meet your criteria. Okay, and then you call the agents directly and all 6 of them are no longer available. And then you come back thinking, well, there's nothing out there. There's no properties. It's difficult to find properties out there. It is impossible because you've only used a small portion of what your options are. Okay. Or you find the one property and you follow through, and at the end of it, it falls through because someone else has taken it or someone's made a higher offer or anything like that. The idea of this presentation is to increase the number of prospects, increase the number of options. So if you do all the things that we've just spoken about so far, it increases the amount of opportunities that you can bring in. And then as some of them fall through, you don't have to worry too much because you have a long list of them. And you'll find yourself at the end of it with options where you can actually decide, right, I've got 7 potential properties that I could actually move into now. And I can choose to go to that one, or I can choose that one, or I can choose that one. That's a better position to be in than to have just the one property and you cross your fingers that everything will go fine. Okay, hope that makes sense. Right, so what's next? Okay, so we've just spoken about all that information on how to find properties and how to increase the chances and how to add more prospects. And I see it as a funnel situation, right? If you have a funnel and it gets smaller and smaller and you filter down to exactly what you're looking for, you can just keep doing all the things that I've just mentioned, add more and more properties in this funnel and let it filter itself down until at the end, you'll probably have more of a chance of getting at least one property that you're looking for. Okay. So what you want to do next is attend viewings. All right. So all of the ones where you've got the responses, just go and attend viewings. And whilst you're in viewings, and this is something that I think is important for you guys to be aware of, when you're there, verify the pictures to reality. Okay, so what you're looking for when you actually get to the viewing, if you've got a link maybe on Rightmove that you've just looked at and you're looking at the pictures of the houses, or you've had someone who sent you the pictures, when you get to the viewing, you're verifying that the pictures are what you see on reality. Because bear in mind, when we advertise things online, we try to show the best of that thing. We do that for ourselves in our profile pictures on Instagram. We show the best of ourselves. So when people are advertising properties, they do exactly the same thing. They take pictures and angles that will show the best. What you want to do is get there, verify that the pictures are the same or close to the reality. Okay. You want to check the boiler state and service. So for those that have just recently come to the UK, you came in summer, winter's coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be really cold. And one of the things that breaks down very easily and quickly is a boiler. And that can be very inconvenient because it gets cold out here. So you want to check the boiler state. On average, or usually, a boiler should be okay for at least 10 years and it needs to be serviced regularly within that period. So if you've got a boiler that is more than 10 years old, you're more likely going to have problems. And you want to be able to see that this boiler is being serviced regularly. So when you when you go in, you want to see the boiler, see when it was installed, see if there's any information about all the servicing that has been taking place, and ask questions about whether the previous tenant or the owner of the property has had any issues with leakages in the radiator or any issues with heating. It's worth asking those questions whilst you're there, okay? Now, request EPC rating. So EPC is the Energy Performance Certificate, right? It is now illegal to rent out a property that is lower than a grade D. Okay, so D is okay, you're allowed to rent out a property. E or F, you're not allowed to rent out that property. That means that it cannot retain the heat in the property properly. You're not allowed to rent it out as it is. So you need to do everything that you can to bring the rating to D or above. Okay, so you can request that from the agent or from the landlord who's showing you the property, and just find out what rating is it on EPC. Okay, so you can just make sure that the property you're going to live in is in a good standard. If it is D or lower, what that means essentially is it doesn't retain its heating properly, which means you're probably going to pay a really high bill on your gas or electricity, whichever source of heating is being used, because it's not retaining the heat in the property. I hope that makes sense. Okay, take lots of pictures when you go to the viewings. And when you take the pictures, try to put the pictures in a folder, because if you're going to view 10 properties in 1 week and you've got a bunch of pictures, you won't be able to tell which one is which, right? What I usually do to break things is the last picture that I take is the same as the first one that I take. I take the picture of the front of the house with the house number, and then I take a bunch of pictures inside, and before I leave, I take that picture again. So when I'm scrolling, I know this is the start and the finish. You can do whatever it is that works for you. Okay, and then also check out the area, right? Before you view it or after the viewing, drive around the area, see what's there. How close is it to the shops? How close is it to standard amenities? What's your feel of the area? If you can also, bear in mind you're about to live in this place and in this house. If you can, come early in the morning, come in the afternoon, and also come late at night and see what the area is like, okay? Right, have your paperwork ready. I always passed this quickly. So you want to have references from your previous landlord or from your employer. You want to have pay slips. You want to have your employer's letter. Get the employer to write a letter that proves that, or it's essentially from HR that confirms that you're an employee of this company. And you might need that. Some agents will ask for it. Proof of address, anything you have, if it's a bill or anything like that, and your identification. This on average is what's being asked for by the letting agent when they do verification and do references on you. So have that ready. If you're in a situation where there's a property you really want and there's 5 or 6 people wanting the same property, you want to make sure you're responding quickly. So have this ready before you actually do your search. Okay. Now, the next stage will be moving in. So upon moving in, you want to get these things. There's something called the How to Rent Guide. It's supposed to be provided to you by either the agent or your landlord. And that has information that you might need to know about. This is a regulation. We have to be given this as a tenant at the start. And that also comes with several certificates, one being the EPC that I mentioned earlier on, the energy performance certificate. You can have the gas certificate if the house is powered by gas, electric certificate, and also obviously your tenancy agreement as well. All of that coming in together. You need to have that at the start. Okay. Register with the council. You're going to need to register for council tax, right? You need to sign up to utilities, as mentioned, dependent on how the property is powered. You want to sign up for gas, electricity. You want to sign up for water, your broadband, TV license, etc. Okay. You want to get on the electoral roll. So on the electoral roll, you'll probably get a letter anyway once you've moved in from the council, but you can actually contact the council and tell them that you want to register on the roll. And this helps with your credit rating, guys. You want to get yourself registered on that. It helps you the credit rating. Many of you guys are renting for now whilst you're working hard to be able to buy your own house. And at the point of purchasing your property and applying for a mortgage, you want a good credit rating. And this is one of the things that actually helps. Okay. Register with the local GP. That's the doctor, believe it's general practitioner. So you want to actually have a look on the NHS website, which doctors your catchment is in. So you can actually verify that. Have a look at what doctors are available and see which one covers your location and register with them as soon as you can. Right. So this is just briefly what you want to be looking at, and then update your address, obviously, with anything and everything, with your employer, with if you've got a driver's license, you want to update your address on the driver's license to the one that you've got now, or anything else that you might need to know about. So your letters or anything don't go to the previous address. Okay. So we're coming to an end now, guys. So just to remind you guys, if you've got any specific questions, please send them in the chat, and we'll answer those questions as we're going on. Okay. So firstly, on the closing remarks, increase the number of prospects. So I spoke about the funnel element. Do all the things, or as many of those as you can, to increase the number of prospects. And increasing the number of prospects will essentially reduce your level of anxiety. The amount of people that tend to come to me and say, I desperately need a house. Okay. Working from a level of desperation is not healthy, people. It's not a healthy thing. You end up actually paying more than what you need to, or you end up settling for something that you don't necessarily want. So if you increase the prospects, you'll always become feeling that I've got options. So do as many of those things as you can, so that if you get to a position where maybe a landlord becomes greedy and increases the rental by another £300 a month, you can comfortably say, that's okay. You can keep your property. I've got options. Whereas if you're desperate, you're more likely going to end up getting into it. Okay. Right. Always respond, and respond quickly. So there's some people who will get a response from an agent or from a landlord saying, I don't have a 2-bed, for example, but I've got a 4-bed. And in your head, you're thinking, well, that's too big. I don't want it. And then you decide not to respond because you don't want the option. Please always respond. If it doesn't work for you, at least tell them that that doesn't work for me. I'm looking for this. Respond all the time if you get anything coming back from these people. Okay, because that increases your chance of them wanting to work with you. Okay, so always respond, and respond quickly. Okay, don't shy away from negotiating terms. This is an important part as well, guys, where most people think if a property has been advertised on Rightmove, for example, and it's a 3-bedroom house and it's been advertised for 1,250, that means it has to be 1,250. No, you can actually negotiate terms. If you go in and maybe, I'll give a silly example. The property is being advertised and on the advert, it's got furniture. But when you go to view it, it's got no furniture. And on the advert, it says 1,250. You can say, well, based on the advert, it's supposed to have furniture at 1,250. I would have been okay with it if it had that furniture, but there's no furniture. I'm going to have to spend money buying furniture in this house. So is it okay if we either have a month's rent free or 2 months rent free, or can we reduce the rent to £1,000 so it can make up for the money that I'm spending to furnish the property? You can negotiate things, or if the property does not match on pictures what it is in reality, or if you find something that's really wrong with the property, but you're still okay to move in, however, you want some sort of financial compensation for the thing that is wrong, you can negotiate terms. Okay, so do not shy away from negotiating terms as long as you've got justification for it, guys. I'm not saying just always negotiate. If the property market is saying a 3-bed in this location in this standard is 1,250 and it matches what you're looking at, don't push it, right? It just creates a situation where even if they agree to those terms, you'll have what's called buyer's remorse, where they might be desperate at the time, but later on they'll be thinking, this person cheated me into reducing my rent. Okay, so you need to make sure you're going into a situation where it's a win-win, or if there's a letting agent, it's a win-win-win. Okay, right. Do not pay for a house you have not seen. This is a big one, guys, because there's an ongoing huge scam at the moment that a lot of people are falling for, where people will say, we've got a property and it's on Airbnb, right? And you're looking for a house for £1,000 a month. We can let you have this house for £1,000 a month, including the bills. Okay. And you look at it and think, oh, that's a great deal. And the next thing that they say is, if you can just pay the deposit and the first month's rent on this link, and then come to get the keys the following day, right? And there's a few people that are falling for it. And as I'm speaking to you guys now, some of you might think, well, why would you ever do that, right? And it seems silly. But the reason those scams are still running now is because people do actually fall for it. So if there's one of the most important things you pick up from this presentation, guys, is do not pay for a house that you have not seen, right? Kindly request for a viewing, kindly request for more information. Go and see the house, feel it, and say, right, this is it, and this is the property, matches the advert, and speak to someone and verify that all the information you're being given is legitimate. This is one of the other reasons I prefer working with letting agents, because especially if you've gone to see the letting agent and you know, right, their office is here, and then you go to see the property with them, you can verify all that stuff. And if there's anything that's wrong, you've got somewhere to go back to. Whereas on Airbnb, you have no idea who's advertising that property. And once your money disappears, trying to find out who that person is will be an absolute nightmare. Okay, hope that makes sense. Right, take a positive approach. All right, this is important. And I put this point here mainly because of it's more of a follow-up from what most people have been saying to me, that we've been told that finding a house is very difficult. If you have that mentality, you're gonna find it very difficult. Or some people who come and say, well, I don't think I'm gonna get my house because they're picking a certain race, for example. And this is common. I hear this quite a lot. If you have that mentality before you even go and search for a property, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're going to go with a certain attitude, and most people don't want to speak or help people that have an attitude anyway, right? If you go in with a positive approach, whether it's true or not should not be any of your business. Take a positive approach with anyone that you meet and speak to, right? And believe that you can actually get a property. And if that one doesn't come through, great, that's okay. Right? We'll go back to point number one, increase the number of prospects. That one hasn't worked out. Let's go to another one. Or that one hasn't worked out. Great. Let's go to another one. And just stay positive about it. Because if you restrict yourself and reduce the number of prospects and go with the negative aspect, it increases your anxiety, it increases your desperation, and you end up falling for scams. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And this one I added in because I think it's important, especially from my experience. Try by all means to speak with a smile on your face, even when you're on the phone, because a smile can actually be heard. Okay, so try by all means to speak with a smile on your face, because whoever you're dealing with is going to be making emotional decisions. We are emotional beings that use logic to try to justify our emotional decisions. So if you speak with a smile on your face, you're creating and building rapport with the person that you're speaking to, whether it's a landlord, landlady, or it's a letting agent. If you build rapport with them, they're more likely going to want to work with you. Okay, so that is an important aspect. And that actually brings the presentation to an end, guys. I'm just going to go through the chat and see. So for anyone who might want to contact me or speak to me in any way whatsoever, feel free to connect with me on Facebook. And that's the name there. Feel free to reach out. It allows you to actually send me a message on my number as well on that page. Feel free to reach out. So I'm just going to go through the chat and see if there's any questions that have been pointed out. Okay. Right. Priscilla says mortgage is for what duration? Say 15 years or what? Any age factor. So the question that's being asked here by Priscilla is to do with mortgages. And Priscilla, because I've got your number, I will share with you the the link to the call we did about mortgages in particular. But just to answer your question, it's up to you. Right, however long you want the mortgage to be. There are 25-year mortgages or less. You can just request that if you wanted to. And age factor, yes, age is a factor. It will play a part dependent on how old you are. But specific to your details, I would recommend you just speak to a mortgage broker. And we do have a very good one on the call right now. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll share details of the call that we had about mortgages, and I'll also share the contact details of the person that you want to speak to. Okay, so Taivani says, who gives out the guarantor form? Right. Okay, so I've just stopped sharing. I've come back into this. And this is the part, guys, I might ask you guys to unmute and verify your questions or just clarify what you're asking for. So just from what I'm seeing here, I'm guessing someone has asked you to provide a guarantor form and you want to find out who gives them out. Are you here, Taivani? If you are, could you just unmute and give me a bit more context?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Not bad. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. So talk me through your question.
Yeah, there's an agent who asked me for a guarantor. So I'm not sure if I heard on some of the guarantor forms you have to put the address where you are going, but they ask for these guarantees or sometimes on the phone and even before you view the property. So I'd like to know, how do you go by this guarantor thing? Do you just
All right, perfect. All right, I understand your question now. So
okay.
just for anyone who might not know what this is about, by the way, so a guarantor is essentially the person who's going to cover for you as the tenant if anything were to happen. If, let's say, you haven't managed to pay the rent or you've disappeared and run away, the landlord or the letting agent is going to want someone else who will cover you. This person is essentially the person who's saying, if anything goes wrong or if you don't pay your rent, the rent will come from me and they'll be part of the tenancy agreement. Now, anytime that an agent asks for a guarantor, they are the ones that will give you the information, or they will be the ones that provide the form for you. Okay, so if it's a form that they need you to fill in, they will give you that form. If they haven't given you the form, just simply ask the question on, can I send you the information via email? And also, can you just tell me what information exactly you're looking for? Okay, but the standard way of doing it, letting agents will give you a form where you as the tenant will fill in information, and also the guarantor will add their information. And sort of going back to what you mentioned earlier on as well, where some agents ask you for this information before you even go to the viewing. Okay, I just need to clarify this. They do not need to do that. What they do that for is to try to filter out time wasters. Okay, it's right and wrong dependent on which side you're sitting and looking at it. Agents spend a lot of time going to viewings, and a lot of those viewings, apparently about 85% of them, don't go anywhere. Okay, so what they try to do is to reduce the amount of time that they waste actually accommodating people that are going to waste their time. It's not to say you will waste their time, but they do that. So they ask for certain things beforehand. And if you're someone who is looking to waste time, you'll be put off and you won't come forward. Okay, so if they say they're looking for the guarantor form, in most cases, if you say, yes, I've got that information ready, or if they say we're going to need payslips, we're going to need IDs, the information that I mentioned earlier on, the paperwork, if you say, yes, I've got that ready, right? Can we arrange a viewing? Okay, in most cases, they won't ask for you to send it straight away. They'll allow you to come and do the viewing, and then they'll get that information from you afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yes, you've answered me. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for the question. Appreciate that.
All right.
Okay. So next one is, will the value change after the initial agreement? So Priscilla, I'm going to need you to come back in here. I'm guessing you asked that question specifically for something that I mentioned. Are you here, Priscilla?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey,
This is the only
talk
thing.
me through your question, please. Were you asking about the value to change after initial agreement? Are you talking about the rent or?
Yeah, that was the rent you were talking about. So I think since you have put a clarification, I will then leave it for maybe rentals. You know, like when I first got my place, it was going for like 600, but eventually it was increased by like 20 due to like increase in water bill or something. So if it's just to rent, then it's clear.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah.
so after initial agreement and dependent on what the agreement is, so if you have a verbal agreement, you're at risk of things changing before you actually move in.
Meeting, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just mute that person. So if you have a verbal agreement, you're at risk of terms changing before you actually move in. So when we say agreement, ideally you want all the information that you've verbally agreed to be on paper. So you sign what's called an AST, which is an assured short-hold tenancy. It's just a tenancy agreement, which says, I am the tenant, I will live in the property, I will pay the rent. You are the landlord or landlady. You will take care of the property and make sure it's conducive for me as a tenant, and you will take the rent as we have agreed. So once you've signed that, that is not likely to change unless it has it in the agreement that this will change. So the rental agreements or the rental increases, you'll probably see that most agreements will say there'll be a rent review once every 12 months or once every 48 months, whatever's been agreed in there. Which brings me to another point, guys. It's important for you to understand what your agreement says, because you'll get people who will sign agreements because they've got a property, they're happy about it. It's a piece of paper with a lot of words. I won't read it. I'll just go and sign at the bottom where it says sign here. Understand what your agreement is saying. Understand what your contract is saying. When are they going to look to increase the rent? By how much are they allowed to increase the rent? All that information should be stated in there. And if you don't see it, you can request for it to be added in so you don't have problems in the future. I hope that answers your question, Priscilla.
Thank you so much.
Fabulous, fabulous. More Blessing says, please add me to the group. Okay, no problem. That's no issue whatsoever. If you have my phone number, which I'm gonna put in now. So just to clarify, okay, I've just sent my number directly to someone. Sorry, I will resend it to everyone. Okay. There we go. So that's my phone number for anyone who might want to join the group. So the group that More Blessing is talking about is the Zim Property Investors. So we've got a community of predominantly Zimbabwean. It's not exclusive to Zimbabweans. Predominantly Zimbabweans. We've got it on Facebook and also on WhatsApp, where we discuss similar information to this, anything to do with houses, anything to do with property, whether you're looking to buy them, you're looking to rent them out, you're looking to make money out of them, or any information that's relevant to people who are living in property. We've got people in there that help other tenants with what rights they have. We've got solicitors, we've got mortgage brokers, and all sorts. So any information that you might need. More about the UK, but not exclusive again to the UK, because we've got people that are investing anywhere and everywhere in the world. So if you're interested in joining that group, feel free just to drop me a message with your name, your surname, and say, please add me to the group. And we'll get you added in. So More Blessing, if you could do that, that would be great. I will get you added in shortly. All right. So going down the next question. Oh, Hazri had actually responded to Priscilla's question, just to say minimum term is 5 years for a mortgage. And Hazri is the person I was talking about, Priscilla. Please feel free to reach out to Hazri. And she's the one we spoke to last time, who has some fantastic information about mortgages and how to apply to them. I will still send you the live that we did together, which shares a lot more information about it, but feel free to reach out to her. She can help. Okay, so staff resources. Thanks for joining staff resources. Really appreciate it. Says, hi, Muzzie, joined late. Will this be shared on the platforms? Dependent on which platform you are in, I will be sharing it in every platform that I actually shared the initial invitation. So there's a COS group on WhatsApp where I shared it. I'll be sharing there. And also the Zim Property Investors WhatsApp group. I'll share it on there. And for those that have my number, I do share this information on my WhatsApp story and on my Facebook as well. So that will be shared there as well. So whichever one you're in, I will be sharing there. And if you're not in either one of them, and you don't have my WhatsApp or anything like that, I've just shared my phone number. Feel free to reach out and I will share the recording with you too.
Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Marigold, how you doing, Marigold? Nice to see you here. Marigold says, excellent presentation. Thanks, Muzzie. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Muzzie. Sorry, I can't show my face right now, but
that's okay.
really,
That's okay.
really, thank
I appreciate you joining. I appreciate you joining.
Thank you.
Right. Tendai says, in an occupied, not yet vacant property, would you advise anyone to view the property shown by the current tenant if the landlord or agent is not present? Okay. Are there any disadvantages to this arrangement? Okay. So it depends on who actually advertised the property. And I'm saying this because going to view a property whilst the tenant is in there and the landlord or the agent are not there is not necessarily a problem if the landlord and the agent are the ones that are actually advertising and the tenant is aware that this is what's going on, they'll be moving out. There's no problem with it. The problem is if the tenant is the one who's advertising this property, and I'm saying this because it has happened, it's actually been in the news where tenants are advertising the property as if they're the landlords. They handle all the viewings and everything. You come into the property, they show you everything, right? And then they ask you then at the point of verification, they'll take you through the normal verification because they know what's happening. They've had to go through it as well themselves. They'll ask you for paperwork, you share all the paperwork with them, and then they ask you to pay a deposit in the first month's rent. You pay the deposit and the first month's rent to the tenant, who then disappears. And then when you actually get hold of the agent and the landlord, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You never spoke to me. So it's important to know who's actually advertising the property, which is, again, going back, the reason why I much prefer to speak to agents and actually see that their office is there. That's their office. I walk into the office and I actually verify that this is a legitimate company, okay? Whereas if you do things just online where you haven't actually managed to verify things, it becomes difficult, okay? Now, there's a website called Land Registry, which is generated by the government essentially. So, but on Land Registry, you've got information about every property and it shows the name of the person who owns it. Okay. You can actually pay £3 if you're really worried or concerned by the things the way that they are, and you're not sure if you're speaking to the person who really owns the property or the agent, you're not really sure, and you want to preserve your money and save yourself. It's only £3. You go on Land Registry, you type that address, it gives you information on who owns the property. You verify with the person who you're speaking to, what is your name. Don't be scared to ask for IDs, guys, because if I'm the tenant and I know Hazri is the owner of the property I live in, I could just say my name is Hazri and verify it with you because I know the owner of the property, but ask for my ID to verify that I am who I say I am. So don't be scared to ask for IDs. If you actually sense that something doesn't sit right, there's no such thing of you asking for too much information. If they don't want to give you the information that will make you comfortable, please comfortably walk away. It is not worth it at all. That's a great question, Tendai. Thank you very much for bringing it up, and I hope I've answered it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, you have actually answered it. Appreciate that.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you
I have
very
another
much.
question that I'm just typing as well.
You've got another question that you typed in?
Yeah, I'm just keying it in now, actually.
Okay, no worries, no worries. I'll go down the questions anyway, and we'll
No
get to
problem.
yours as well. No
That's
problem.
all right, mate. Cheers, mate.
Right.
Thank you.
No worries. Marcy says guarantor situation may need more quality. Okay. Do you want to tell us what you mean, Marcy?
Sorry, I was typing with my hands. I was driving and trying to type at the
Oh,
same. I
okay.
meant clarity,
Oh,
not
clarity.
equality. Yeah. So what? Yeah. So what is? Oh, I'm not Freddie, by the way. I'm Marcy. Anyway, the clarity that
We're gonna
we
start
need.
calling you Freddie from now on, Marcy.
So the clarity that I was talking about, the way I understood the question when the gentleman who asked earlier, I thought he was asking, where do you get the guarantor? As in, I've been asked by a lot of people to be their guarantor, and I felt very uncomfortable to say no. And when I did say no, they actually didn't like me anymore as a person. So I think he wants to know if there's a list of guarantors out there, but I don't think there is one. But you never know, I might be surprised today. So I just wanted to, I thought that's what he was trying to say.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I understand where you're coming from now. Now that you've clarified that. And I had read it as the form itself that actually allows you to put the information of that guarantor. And just to clarify, there is no place where you can find a list of guarantors that you can use. Guarantor is exactly as what's happened with you, Marcy, where someone who you know and knows you asks you to be their guarantor, asks you to take that risk essentially. And you're right to be uncomfortable doing it. And sometimes it is uncomfortable to say no, especially if it's someone that you know. But sometimes we know people in terms of, I just know this person, but I don't know about their financial situation. I don't know about how their financial management looks like. I don't know if they have been paying their rent or their mortgage all along. They're just someone that I know from church, someone that I know from football, someone I know from the club. So signing up to be their guarantor is a risk and a quarter. So please be aware who is asking you to be a guarantor, who you are actually looking to take that risk for. However, from my understanding of that question, it was just the form where you can put the information of the guarantor. Some employers actually do the guarantor for you, okay? Because essentially your income is coming from your employer. And there are some employers that are comfortable putting their business in for their employees as guarantors, especially for situations where like the recent people that have come into the country and they don't have anyone. They're the first people in their family to come here, and they don't have anyone that they know that can ask for the guarantor element. And if you're one of those people, feel free to go back to your employer and say, this is the situation, this is what I've been asked for. Is there anything that you can provide that can help me to get past this? Because all the landlord or the letting agent is looking for is a bit of confidence that if this person defaults, right, we've got someone else that we can reach out to. So we can reach out to their employer. That's okay. Now, this is all a just in case, right? In most cases, guarantors are never contacted anyway. You just put your name in, you're never contacted by anyone, because most tenants do actually intend to pay their rent on time. They do intend to always pay their rent. And if you're that kind of person, you shouldn't necessarily worry too much about who the guarantor is going to be. I hope that kind of clarifies that, both the question that you thought it was and the one that you are actually asking. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thanks for putting your input in there. CCZ phone says the group also has planners. We're very important. I am so sorry. The list that I named wasn't a list of everyone in the group, by the way. It's just some of the people in the group. Yes, there are planners in the group as well as town planners in there sharing some valuable information. So you've got all sorts of different stakeholders that are part of property. Anything that you can think of that you might require in property, you'll find in this group. There's different skill sets in there. So definitely. And planners, yes, absolutely. Planners are very important. Very, very important. I agree with you, CCZ phone. Right. Ed Nando is giving me her phone number. Could you just send me a message in my either WhatsApp or direct phone number, please, with your name and surname? Please try to avoid to send your numbers and details in this public platform. That would be great. Right. That's the same thing with Tendai. If you could please just send me a message, because it will be difficult for me to go through all this information here, but I can go through my phone. Right. Hazri is mentioned again. Minimum term is 5 years. Priscilla's responded to Hazri, which is great. Okay. Charlene says, in addition to the question about being shown around by the tenant, sometimes when legit, it's actually more beneficial than landlords and agents, as they live in the house and they know the area and insights. They know the ins and outs, so might be able to provide more helpful information about the surrounding areas and any real-time issues. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. So as mentioned by Charlene there, Charlene's my wife, by the way, mentioned by Charlene, if it is a legitimate thing, it might be a good thing to actually speak to the tenants themselves, because like Charlene's mentioned, you get to know about the area, you get to know about the problems in the house, and also you get to know a bit more about the landlords themselves and the letting agent, their response times, because at the point that they're advertising, again, they'll show their best selves. If you speak to the tenant and ask them about their experience in the past year, you will have an idea of what you're walking into. So that's a really, really valid point, actually. Thank you very much for pointing it out, Shah. Tendai says, is the putting the rent deposit in the deposit scheme a mandatory procedure and legal requirement? If it is, how does one push this to be completed, and how long must one wait for the DS confirmation to be completed? All right. Good question. Very, very good question. Okay. So it's one of the regulations that's required as a provider. If you're regulated by one of the property redress schemes or the property ombudsman, you're required to have a deposit protection scheme. Okay. Not everyone follows it. It's actually a requirement for you to have a deposit protection scheme, because a deposit is not revenue. It's not someone's profit. It should be protected by an independent party. And that's what a deposit protection scheme is. But even though it is regulated that way, not everyone uses it. You have the right to request for it to be done, and it actually happens instantly. You can do it online, all right, and get your confirmation. So in the deposit protection scheme, you log in, you have access to it, but you can't pull the funds out as a tenant. The landlord has access to it, but can't pull funds out. The deposit protection scheme plays the role of the intermediary, where if and at the point that you leave or you check out or you decide to leave the property, you can then say, I want my deposit back. And then the landlord can say, well, actually, I'm not giving you all your deposit because you've got this damage and that damage and that damage. But now, because of that dispute, the intermediary, the actual deposit protection scheme company will say, give us evidence of what you're talking about. It then becomes the landlord's responsibility to show all the damages and say, we're costing it at this amount, therefore we want to retain this amount. You can agree or disagree, but you have to bring your own evidence as well. So that protects the deposit, which is exactly what it is, a deposit protection scheme. It is regulated. We're supposed to do that as landlords, but I'll be honest with you, not everyone does. So it's hard to push for it to happen, because with some landlords or some letting agents, they could say, well, we don't necessarily want to put it there. We want to restore it in a different way. And if you're not comfortable with that, then we're just going to find someone else. Okay, that's the sad situation. You can't make them do it. All right. I know it's not the greatest answer, Tendai, but does that clarify it?
Yes, it clarifies that. Yeah, I appreciate you answering that. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you for the question.
Yes, man, no problem.
Good. Marcy says, is it reasonable for the landlord to ask for 3 months rent as deposits? Interesting part is I actually went to a viewing this afternoon and the landlord actually requested for that. And reasonable, well, reasonable is a matter of opinion. The landlord will say yes, the tenant will say no. But as a landlord, you can ask for anything. As a tenant, if you're not happy with it, you can just decline. Okay. Now, what usually happens, so I'm going to wear my landlord's hat here and try to justify that request. Okay. And what usually happens, and this happens a lot of times, where someone says, I'm looking to move into this property. Yes, everything is great. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with that. And they come in, they pay the first month's rent and they pay the deposit. Okay. And then a month or two later, something changes, or they disagree, or they have any issues, and the tenant just leaves and just wants to leave. Okay. And they don't pay their rent anymore. Start having signs that something is wrong with this particular tenant. And one of the ways that people actually, one, protect themselves and their property, and two, verify that the tenant I'm taking on is good for what they say they're doing, okay, is asking for an extended amount of money for the rent. Now, this 3 months rent requirement is usually a pay the 3 months upfront, and then you don't pay anything for the 3 months and then continue in the 4th month. And some people will say, pay the 3 months up front, you'll continue paying rent for the 3 months, and then you have a 3-month gap after the first 3 months. This is just to do some sort of verification. But going back to the point that I made in the presentation, do not shy away from negotiating terms. So if this doesn't work out for you, you don't have to say, absolutely not, I'm not doing that. You can just come back with your own requirement and say, well, I understand you're asking for 3 months. Do you mind telling me why? Or you can say, I understand you're asking for 3 months. At the moment, I can do 2 months. Would it work if I pay the 2 months up front and then not pay any rent for the 2 months and then continue paying on the 3rd month? Just come back with your terms that work, right? So in answering your question, Marcy, as a landlord, yes, it's reasonable. As a tenant, no, it's not, because reasonable is a matter of opinion. But there's no law that regulates the amount of money you can ask for upfront. As long as you've signed an assured short-hold tenancy, which says you are the tenant, you have the right to stay in that property. How much you've paid in advance has not been stipulated anywhere. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Hope that clarifies that. Okay, good. Tatenda says, that is not reasonable from my experience for renting in the UK. So it just depends who it is that's actually asking for it. So the highest amount that I've seen is 6 months. Okay, 6 months is the highest I've seen. That's for a standard residential, and then it can go up to 12 months for commercial properties. So it just depends who you are. It depends on what you're looking for, what kind of security you're after. In most cases, these people that ask for the upfront rent will probably not ask you for a deposit, because that's the confidence that they're actually looking for. It just depends. It just depends on what exactly you are after. Okay, so TK says, hey there, everyone. We're a new estate agency here to help you find a new property. Feel free to get in touch with us. So TK's come into our group and advertised himself or herself. Fair play to you. Okay, Violet says, hi, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom property in Bedford and I am struggling to get one. Can anyone help me? Yes, we can. You can just watch this video again and look at the presentation on how to find your properties. So if you might be interested in joining our group as well, there's some people in your area. There's some people in your area that might be able to assist. So the Milton Keynes, Luton area, Northamptonshire, that side of the world has got quite a few people in our group, and they might be able to assist with what you're looking for. Even if they don't actually get you a property, it will be good to connect with those people in that location because they can share some valuable information with you. All right, so feel free to reach out to us if you want to join the group and we can potentially help you. But to answer your question, please just go through the the recording of this and go through the presentation so you can figure out how to find these properties yourself. Right. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. Skim says, hi, Muzzie. Hi, everyone. What's been a justified reason for terminating a contract for an existing that you would have acquired? Okay. Are you here, please? Because I am hearing your question and I don't want to make the assumption of what you're asking. Are you here? Skim or S-Chim?
Hi, Muzzie. It's Sims. It's Simba.
Ah, Simba. Could have just put
Yes.
that, Simba, and made it simple for me.
I don't know what it appears. It's actually S Chimombe. I think maybe it's just
So
yeah.
I'm just
So I
seeing
think
the S-Chim.
it's half of
Okay.
that. Yeah, it's half of that.
Hello,
Sorry,
sir.
I was typing fast, so I must have missed a few words there.
No worries, no worries.
I was gonna ask that. Well, hi everyone. Well, I was just gonna ask that. What are seen as justifiable reasons for terminating a contract for an existing property that you would have acquired?
Yeah.
I just want to know because I wish I had had this webinar before I acquired my recent property. I would have learned a lot, even how to look for one and how to, you know, eventually get one. So I was just, you know, looking at situations where, okay, now maybe I'm having second thoughts and I want to look for another property. But now, because I've acquired one recently, what can I use to, you know, put myself
Oh,
back in that
so
position
you're
again?
actually speaking as the tenant who's looking to leave the property.
Yeah, something like
Oh,
that. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So, based on what's been happening in recent years in the UK, it's easier for you as the tenant to leave the property than it is for you as a landlord to kick out a tenant. So I was starting to get a bit worried when you're asking the question. I'm thinking, oh, you're gonna struggle to kick out a tenant if you're talking as a landlord. But if you're a tenant, in most cases, you don't even need to justify it. You can just let them know that I'm looking to move areas and give them the notice that you have on your agreement.
Okay, so it's basically just giving them enough time for them to then start looking for someone else to replace me.
Yeah, but just stick to what it says on your actual agreement. So enough time to one person is different to another person. So on your contract, it will talk about the notice agreement or the notice period or the termination side, where it will say either one of the parties can terminate the contract within X period. So if it's a month, if it's 2 months, you can just give them a notice. In most cases, they want it to be a written notice, so you can send them an email. You can ring them as well, just to clarify that they've received the email and they've seen that you're actually handing in your notice, right? So you can actually do, as a tenant, you don't even need to give them a reason. They may ask you, but you don't necessarily have to justify it. You can give them whatever reason you want to.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, man.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, I've inboxed you. Okay, 1 second before I go. I've inboxed you my number, so please add me into the Zim Property Investors group if you can.
We would love to have you in there, Simba.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so next one is Bonita. Says, I am also looking in Manchester. Can you please signpost me? Fabulous. Funny enough, the locations that you guys are speaking about are the ones that are actually filled with people in the group. So Manchester is another place that has quite a few very active property investors in there as well. So it'll be good for you to join the group and come in and connect with those people and actually see what assistance you might be able to have. So if you would like to, Bonita, feel free to send me a message if you haven't already. And I can see you've raised your hand. Feel free to unmute and talk to us. Feel free to unmute, Bonita.
Hi, Muzzie. Yeah,
Hello.
thank you. I liked what you said about being, not having a negative perception as you're going in looking for properties. I think that was good advice. But I'm already in the Zim group and the cost group, so I'm not sure where the property investors are for Manchester, and if maybe you have any names, that would be really helpful for me to, reach out to them, or maybe come to you directly and you signpost me, because I'm looking for a house which is, maybe children's home compliant, if that makes sense.
So you're actually looking for a house for a business.
Yes.
Because I was gonna say, try to watch back this video and pick up the information. But this is more specific to if you're looking to move in. So if you're actually looking for a house for a business, it's even more imperative for you to actually connect with people in the group. I don't know if you have already actually put in the group to say I'm looking for investors in Manchester, and people tend to start tagging each other. But I personally know some people who are in Manchester who I'm happy to actually connect you with, and just feel free to speak to them. They're very active in the Manchester area. So if you'd like to firstly put a message in the group and say looking to connect with Manchester investors, I will tag some people in case they miss your message as well. But sort of going back to you searching for a property, I'm gonna flip it a little bit now, because now I'm speaking to someone who's looking for a property to run as a business. So some of the information I've shared on this presentation is not relevant. What's really important for you, ideally, you want to actually speak to agents, because agents have access to bigger portfolios. The challenge you have with agents is they are usually used to people that are looking for a property to move in for them to live, okay? Some agents are not accustomed to people taking on a property to run it as a business, whether supported living, serviced accommodation, HMOs, and all sorts. What's important is what you then say to them at the point you acquire the property, or at the point that you actually ask about the property, okay? And it's important that you have I don't necessarily like calling it a pitch, but then it's more of a justification to why they should give you the property and allow you to do what you're doing, okay? I've spoken to several people that do supported living, something similar to what you do, whether it's for children or vulnerable adults, whichever one that is you're doing. That is a very noble cause. It happens to be a job. It pays your bills. It takes care of your family. But that job is a very noble cause for you to use your humanity to talk about this to someone else, right? When you speak to a letting agent, do not see it as me, investor, versus letting agent. Try to find their name. If you're speaking on the phone, most of them will answer and tell you their name before you actually speak to them. Or if you're speaking to them in person, in the office, they have their name tag or their name on their desk. Address them by their name and repeat their name as you're talking to them as well. That builds rapport. And when you talk about what you do, talk about the vulnerability of the people that you're working with and what you do for them and how passionate you are about that. Use that as a story, and then end it with, could you help me so I can help them? So could you help me with a 3-bed? Could you help me with a 5-bed? I desperately need to help these people in this location. I'm hoping that's kind of making sense. And if they don't have a property, or if they don't actually do corporate lets, which is what it is that you're doing, you'll most likely find that if you've built rapport with them, they might even point you to the direction of the people who can. Does that make sense, Bonita?
It does. Thank you very much. I think I'll reach out on a one-to-one, because I like the way you've, like you called it a pitch, but it does make sense. It is a pitch, because I'm selling my services to them as well. It might be a business partnership, but it's a pitch that I need to make to them. And I've found that, with individuals, they're a bit reluctant to, once you start mentioning that you want to bring vulnerable children who might be challenging, they sort of like really close the doors. But the fact that you said we have to keep pushing and trying,
Indeed.
and the people will obviously help. But I think I'll reach out for a one-to-one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to have a chat with you, and hopefully that's something that we can help with. But that's a valid point you've raised there. It's especially for people that are running businesses like yourself. You want that funnel to be even bigger, because your what you're looking for is rarer. It's a bit more difficult to find. So you want to open the funnel as much as possible. So there's other aspects of looking for properties that I would recommend for you that I haven't mentioned in this presentation, because they're not quite relevant for people that are looking for houses to live in. So we can speak about it on a one-to-one basis as well.
Real. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Thank you for joining us. And Violet says, I joined late, so how do I get in touch in the group? Okay, So I'm just going to drop my phone number again and reiterate this, guys. For anyone who wants to join our Zim Property Investors group, please send me a message either on WhatsApp or just a direct message and state your name and surname. I request the surname because as Zimbabweans, most of us as Zimbabweans, we've got very common names and a lot of us have the same name and it becomes confusing on who we're actually addressing. So we prefer to have the surname as well so we know which one it is that we're speaking to. So if you just send your name and surname and just say, please add me to Zim Property Investors Group, or please add me to the group, we will respond to you, or I will get through the messages tonight and tomorrow morning, and I will add you all into the group. That will be the easiest way for us anyway. I hope that kind of clarifies it. And I think I've come to the end of the chats and messages, and I'm hoping this actually has helped, guys. I'm hoping this has helped. And we were hoping to just do this for an hour, and it's 8:15 or it's 17 minutes past 8 now. I think we're going to bring it to a close. Thank you guys very much for the guys that have managed to come and join us. Thank you so much for the guys that are watching on YouTube as well. And I'm hoping this has been helpful for you too. If you do want to actually reach out and join our group, please feel free just to drop me a message in the Facebook page that I showed earlier on. The name is Muzzie Nduna, Muzzie, Nduna, Nduna. So feel free to reach out and we're happy to bring you in. So just as I'm speaking now, Nobuhle has just said something, or I've missed someone else as well, I think. Okay. Marcy says, thank you for a fabulous presentation, as always, to both Muzzie and Charlene from Freddie. Thanks, Marcy. Nobuhle says, I joined late, Muzzie, and I can see you are recording this session. Will this be available on your YouTube channel afterwards? Absolutely. Yes, it will be. So hopefully I can get this added in tonight. But I do have some stuff that I need to finish off. If I don't manage to get it tonight, it will be done tomorrow, definitely. And I'll be sharing it back to the same platforms where I was advertising this. Please, guys, if you do see this video and you have people that you know are going to find this very valuable, feel free to share it with them as well. I think this is very valuable information, especially for people that have just recently come to the UK who are not as wary of the things and how things work here. They're finding themselves falling into some ridiculous scams, some things that we think are obvious because we've been here for a long time and it's obvious to us, but it's not so obvious to them. So please kindly share this information to as many people as you can think of who might find this relevant and relatable to, and that will be really, really, really appreciated. Thanks again, guys. I'm going to cut this off now. I will stop the recording now.